Welcome to the 5th season of Tips for the Transition. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host, and we are a little late this morning. My apologies. We've had a few technical glitches and some user errors. My apologies. In case you have never watched this podcast before, we've been the #1 most watched show on Voice America TV now for 15 months running. And I hope that you will now enjoy these weekly conversations as we bring them to you now in this live arena. We are expanding our reach into live streaming as well as audio podcasts. So tune in every Wednesday and you'll find us here. We develop these interviews as resources for women to help them become more confident, more resilient, and brave in their careers and their life. So I'd like to get started today. We're going to talk today about fitting the mold or not. My guest is Stephanie Rigby, and she's going to share her personal story about her experience being the proverbial square peg in a round hole. I asked Stephanie to join us because this is a story that's likely to resonate with a lot of women who are working hard at fitting in and finding themselves kind of feeling badly about it. So now, before I bring Stephanie on screen with me, let me just tell you a bit more about her. She is an Instagram content mentor who empowers her clients to create authentic content and helps them focus on using Instagram to grow their business. She has over 10 years of corporate sales and marketing experience, but the 9-to-5 life was just not for her. She started her online business after constantly waking up feeling tired, unhappy, and longing for more. 3 months later, she went full-time into her business and never looked back. Now she mentors online creatives in creating content that stops their clients, their dream clients, scroll. Stephanie is going to inspire us today to see that fitting in can be a good thing when you know what you're fitting into. Let me see if the technical part of this now will work, and let me bring Stephanie on screen. There is Stephanie. We're going to try to share the screen first, and it may not work. I don't know why. All right. Bear with me. Say hello, Stephanie, so that we
Hi,
can
everyone.
see if I can make this work. I don't know why. I don't know why, ladies and gents, but let me introduce you to Stephanie Rigby. So you'll just have to hear my voice for a moment, and then we're going to. So, Stephanie, let's just get started by talking about what you went through. In my line of work, I talk with a lot of women who are struggling to make things fit today, and everything is changing so fast that they keep doing what they know how to do without questioning what they want to do instead. So I'd love for you to share this part of your story. Would you do that for us?
Absolutely. I'd be so happy to. Thank you for having me on today. I'm excited to share my story with everyone because it's definitely one that has helped define me in a very positive way, and I've learned a lot from my story. So, I guess the best way to start is I went to school originally for fashion, business, and marketing. I've been to school long enough to be, I was in school long enough to be a lawyer. I went to college and university in Canada. Those are two different things. So upon going to university, that was my starting my fourth year in post-secondary school. I, was in the retail world, working in a retail store selling shoes, and I had a lot of really detrimental and toxic experiences in that environment. I had a manager that really didn't care about his staff. I worked for a small family business that really, favorited a lot of their family employees. And I was treated pretty poorly by a family employee. So when I was in school, I had these high hopes of being a VP in a corporate company, running the shots, that sort of thing, because I took strategic management in university. And that was something that, I really tried hard to kind of move up in the ranks towards. However, it just seemed that in these companies, it was really hard to get out of that sort of like subordinate position. And I ended up having, some kind of issues with some of my coworkers that didn't treat me the greatest, and I was bullied and those sort of things. So, that was kind of the start of the bad experience working for other people. And that's when my dream started to dwindle a little bit of, ever really being able to get to that kind of top spot in corporate, because it just started to seem almost impossible and really, daunting in a sense, or also, almost impossible, because I felt like I was going to have to deal with a lot more stuff than I was dealing with in the moment. So it was a really, traumatic sort of experience to start my career off with, to speak.
Wow. All right. Well, that kind of sets the stage for us. So I'd love for you to just take us on that emotional journey a bit that you went on as you were struggling with that, and help us because everyone's story is a little different. Sometimes where we relate the most is the feeling the feelings, or recognizing that they've felt the feelings that you felt. Tell us about that, and tell us what your turning point was.
Yes. So while I was working in the retail shop, I had a couple of coworkers that would bully me and just weren't very nice. So I started to immediately kind of set my sights a little higher or outside of retail. I did eventually end up finding a new job, and essentially, just the best way to look at that in hindsight is it took me to step out of that situation and kind of remove those feelings, or remove the reality, and or change my reality rather, to actually stop feeling, bad about myself. And I typically felt like I didn't want to go to work every day. I felt really burdened going into work. I didn't feel like I was ever going to really amount to anything, even though I was going to school and being inspired by professors and colleagues, or other students in my classes. I still just didn't feel like the job I was doing was going to get me to where I wanted to be. And it just kind of felt like an endless cycle, that wasn't really going to go anywhere. So, those feelings of kind of overwhelm, and also just general stress on an everyday level, because I didn't feel like I could be myself. When I was myself, I felt like people ridiculed me for it. So, I kind of vowed to myself that I was going to try really hard to get into a corporate job as soon as I graduated. So as soon as I did graduate, I was lucky enough, and I think maybe it was a bit of the universe helping me out as well. I was given a call from a company that was looking to hire me on at a $60,000 a year salary. So, of course, coming out of school, that's very, very exciting and, elusive, or alluring. And it felt really good to be able to be offered this opportunity when I was at the point where I didn't feel like I would find anything better in a, short amount of time. So that was a really great way to sort of graduate school. And then when I ended up going into that full-time job, it was as a business to business phone sales position. So I was working in an office, it all felt new and exciting. And I got to meet a lot of colleagues that were around my age as well. I was about 21 at the time. And I was able to meet tons of other people that were, under 30 and thriving in their careers, or just starting in their careers. And it felt really empowering in a sense. However, I quickly found out that not everything, or the grass isn't always greener on the other side, or not everything is as great as you think it's going to be. I made some friends with a few men or males that were in my office. And unfortunately, they started to sort of take advantage of my friendship and my niceness, and sexually harass me a little bit. And it got to a point where it was really, I mean, to begin with, it was unbearable, but it was something I didn't know how to really deal with right away. So that was kind of like my second negative experience in my career path, where I just thought, I'm trying to fit in, like you said, in a positive way and find where I fit in this company. However, I wasn't being protected at work. And when I tried to speak out about the situation that was happening to me, I was blamed for the situation. So immediately after that situation, came to a halt and I had actually spoken up about it, my performance at work started to dwindle and go down quite drastically because I didn't feel like myself anymore. I felt like I had been taken advantage of. I felt like, again, I couldn't amount to anything, or people didn't really, appreciate my skills or want to see me grow my skill set and use what I had learned in school in my career. So this again was just a second experience that really, made a huge impact on me. And now looking back, it's helped me learn a lot about how, to deal with other people, how to make sure you speak up, how to set boundaries, and all of those things. So that was the second most traumatic experience I went through in the beginning of my career, which made me feel like, this either it's not for me, or this is something that I would like to do, but try to find a way where I don't have to deal with such negative experiences each time I have a new job, sort of thing.
Well, that makes, um, sorry for the flipping back and forth, folks. Um, we'll figure out this new live streaming thing soon. Um, I, it's it's interesting to me that um, from one negative experience to another, but different, right? So you unfortunately had to deal with some of the nastiest things that we have going on in the corporate world. I
Yeah.
was in the corporate world for 30 years, and I've seen a lot of it, experienced some of it. Not nice. So to help me understand, though, for you, you're still very young, and you had some choices to make. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the turning point for you and what was the choice you decided.
Yeah, that's a great question, Maria. So I think for me, the turning point was, so one, do I continue down this road, try to stay in this company and try to increase my performance, which meant doing a lot of personal work, maybe, getting counseling or something like that. And I think I wasn't at the point where I was ready to go down that road. So I thought, you know what, maybe I should just look. And the other choice obviously was looking for another path. So for another job and, to further my career um, down that path. So I finally decided that I would start looking online, put my resume online again. So that was the choice that I made to continue to remove myself from the situation. And because of that poor performance that had come out of this situation, I did end up getting let go from my job, which was also detrimental to my self-esteem in a sense, because it was like I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. I didn't feel like I was being helped, or, anyone really cared about the situation I had gone through, and I didn't feel I was supported as a team member. Because, it would have been nice if they had actually offered me some counseling services or tried to help me figure out how to really deal with this so that my performance could improve. But it seemed like probably in their eyes, it was easier to just kind of cut their losses and hire somebody new. So, I mean, the choice was sort of made for me. However, I had already made the choice that I was going to look elsewhere. So, pretty much a week after being let go from this job, which I did feel was wrong on their part, and I did try to go to a lawyer for, but unfortunately, there were some things where he just thought it would be a little murky and a little bit harder to really get a settlement out of it. So I decided not to pursue that path, which again, I guess was another choice, as you pointed out. So I definitely think that I was glad that I kind of looked at it from, how can I be proactive in this sense? And I did end up getting another job fairly quickly, if within 2 to 3 weeks of losing that first job. And I was still able to continue in the corporate world and really experience and, get that sales and marketing experience that now has helped me in my business today. So I think the turning point was being let go from that job, feeling like I did nothing wrong to deserve what had happened to me, and felt like I had been given zero support to actually recover from that in the workplace. So I think that really set a tone for me of employers don't really care about your well-being or your mental health. They just want you to come to work, do what they need you to do, and leave. And whatever you do or whatever happens to you outside of that doesn't matter to them. So I think that sort of kind of set a negative tone right from the beginning of what the corporate workplace was all about. And so that's when I just, started to really realize that this may not be for me as much as it was part of my dream in the beginning. I started to realize that, there could be something more out there for me. And I started to have thoughts of there possibly being a way to work for myself, but that would take years of thinking and plotting and planning before that actually happened.
It's so unfortunate that um, that was your experience, and I'm sorry for that. I I know that it happens to people, and that's why I wanted you to come on today, because I know it's happening to others out there,
Yeah.
especially in this um, uh, pre-post pre-post pandemic.
Right.
A lot of women are struggling with what's going on here, and I'm sorry that you left the corporate world feeling that that's how corporate is, because not all corporations are like that. Not all leaders within corporations are like that. But I can understand how it would leave a very bad taste in your mouth and uh, push you towards figuring out another path. And that's really what I want to focus on now, is that there are other choices out there when the corporate world, or whatever the world is you choose to start in, is not working out for you. It's not the be all and end all. And there are choices you can make. So I would love to just dig a little bit in that with you. When you went online, put your resume back online, found another job rather quickly, started to gain some of that sales and marketing experience, what was it that um, attracted you to this idea of working, building your own business? And how did you get started?
Yeah, great question. So I think for me, it was sort of the monotonous day-to-day kind of tasks and not having control over them in the corporate workplace, where I was, it was dictated to me what exactly I would need to focus on, where I'd have to put my energy, when I could take a break, when I could essentially come in and leave the building sort of thing. And so I've never been somebody that's really enjoyed necessarily being told, in a strict manner what I have to do all the time. So I think naturally, as much as I tried to force myself, like you said, as a, square peg in a round hole to fit that mold, I just couldn't fit the mold as much as I tried to force myself to. It was, starting to really get to me every day, trying to force myself to sit at my desk for the full like 4 hours in the morning before I could take a break sort of thing, for the full, 3.5 whatever hours in the afternoon. And just doing that day in, day out, dealing with coworkers that were either rude or, just having to put up with personalities that I wouldn't choose to be around. So I think just having every day not being able to make the choices of what was happening for me and how it was happening started to make me think, okay, I know that there's entrepreneurship opportunities out there. I know people make it in the world as an entrepreneur and start their own business. I mean, most of these companies are started by somebody doing that in the first place, right? And that's how they grow to be so big and have all these employees. And I actually come from a background of entrepreneurs. My grandfather started his own furniture business that became the family business. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My mother, is an entrepreneur as well, and was just really beginning her path down through entrepreneurship at that time. So I did see that it was possible and did know that it was possible. And so I think it was, just trying to force myself into this mold that didn't fit me, that really made me realize there's got to be more out there. So probably a year into this new role, or 6 months probably into this new role, I started to kind of drum up ideas of things I could start as a side business. You know, I always had an interest in fashion. I was always interested in community and that sort of thing. So I really started to get the wheels turning, but it wasn't until probably 3 years after that, after changing jobs again and not having a great experience in yet another job due to a lot of the politics and things that go into the workplaces, and a lot of toxic environment experiences as well. That's really what drove me to say, okay, I'm done with this as my full-time gig. I'm going to really put all of my effort into finding something I could do for myself. So probably 2 years before I started working for myself, I got certified in social media management, and I started to take online courses that would give me a new skill set so that I could either, one, apply for those types of roles that I actually really wanted to work in, that I had gone to school to learn about, and two, possibly do something on the side to help other people. The last gig that I did, I call it a gig because it was kind of a short stint that I did this role. However, I was an executive assistant to a woman that ran her own Facebook ads agency. And so I got to work from home. She was younger than me. She was, making quite a bit of money, working with big names in the business, such as Mel Robbins. She was working with a couple of influencers, Natalie Ellis from Boss Babe, as some people may be familiar with her. That was one of her clients. Marie Forleo had been one of her clients. I'm done name dropping, but basically, I started to see that it was possible impact this many people, and actually, grow an income doing this. A lot more about marketing, and I actually was able to get that hands-on experience in the marketing industry, not just from a corporate business to business perspective, but from an entrepreneur to entrepreneur perspective. So that made me realize that there's a big need out there for people who need an assistant like myself to help them with social media. My mother was a small business owner. My best friend was a real estate agent that just started on her own, and they were starting to see the power of social media for their business to really, get leads, get in touch with potential customers, and market their services. So I decided that I was going to be a virtual assistant and freelance with entrepreneurs such as my mother and my best friend, which is I started working with both of them. And so that's pretty much how I got the start into what I do now. However, it took a little bit to decide that I didn't want to just work like for someone. I wanted to help them strategize and kind of be more of that strategic partner for them, rather than someone that just sort of did that menial administrative work. So that's pretty much where I decided and started my own business.
I am so impressed. I really am. I am and inspired. And I love what you said, that you had the thought first that you wanted to do something different, that you wanted to explore starting your own business. And then you did some research, and then you took some courses. You got certified first, and then you took some courses to build the skills you need, or would need, before you actually took the leap. And that is such a brilliant way to do it. Not everyone has that luxury. A lot of people are kind of thrown into this, through a layoff, perhaps, um, or getting fired for, not for cause. Um, but the path you took, regardless of what brought you there, is a brilliant one. So
Thank you.
figuring out what it is you are good at, right? And then exploring that and building your skills in that area. And then it was great that it was just great timing for you, that your mom and your best friend needed the services you wanted to provide. And then you evolved from there. And that's how it happens. That's how it happens. I love that story. And I want to thank you so much for sharing the path you took, so that others can see that it's possible, and that um, the journey is different for everyone. But knowing what you want, figuring out who you are, in that mix, and then figuring out how to make it happen are really the essential ingredients in every transition that we make in our lives. So I really appreciate you sharing that story. And now, Stephanie, I want to ask you, this is the part that everyone seems to like the most about the Tips for the Transition podcast. We have our guests at the end of every show share their best tips for each of us so that we can learn some practical tools and techniques that we might be able to implement right away. Some of them we may have tried before, but maybe there's a little tweak that you hear, or it may be something you've never thought of before. So, Stephanie, let's get into this. Tell us what your first tip is for us.
I think my first tip is, and it's more of a mantra, but if you can't stop thinking about something, it's meant to be and it's worth pursuing. So, my first tip is if there's something you cannot stop thinking about that you think, oh, I'd like to do that. Maybe I could do that. Maybe I should try that. That's a sign right there that that's something that you need to pursue. So, that right there was a sign for me when I couldn't stop thinking and writing in my notes all these ideas of things I could do and researching and how to start a business and all these things. That was a sign that I was meant to do that and not continue pursuing another job, another job, another job. So that is my first tip.
That's a great one. You know, and I talk with my clients a lot about this. It's very often it's something that we may have been dreaming for a very long time. It may be an old childhood dream, in fact, that we need to revisit. So I love that. That's yeah, if you can't get it out of your head, you should pay attention to it. Love that. All right, what's your second one?
My second one is network and community. So find a network or build your network through, networking with other people and also create a community for yourself of like-minded people that will help you stay supported, help you stay motivated and continue to inspire you through their own journeys as well. While I was starting out my business, unfortunately I did start it out in a side hustle capacity and I was, working full time at the time and then lost my job due to COVID. So for me, that was the decision I then made to say, okay, you know what, this is going to be my full time and I'm not going to look back. But after I decided that, I thought, well, I don't really know too many entrepreneurs or anyone that could really help support me in this. And a lot of the people in my immediate circle, besides my mother and my best friend, were not full time entrepreneurs. So I found a community online just by fluke through Instagram that offered co-working sprints. And now I've been part of this community for almost 2 years. And I've had so many great connections from it. And I've joined other similar communities to continue to grow that network and expand that community feel as well.
That's wonderful. I love that. And getting support is so important. The other thing I just would like to add to that is peer-to-peer support is really powerful. And it makes you feel like you are not alone, and that's important. But I want to add something because finding a mentor, someone who is further along than you are at this stage and can kind of reach their hand out and pull you up so you can aspire to something bigger and better than you where you are today. That's also an important piece of that support network.
Yes. And that would be my third tip is find a mentor or a
Huh?
coach to help you as well.
I didn't even know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my third tip for sure. I'm guessing that's where we're going next. So yeah, that would definitely what I would like. That's what I would recommend is finding a mentor, and it's really worth investing in a coach, especially in the brand new stages of your business and the beginning of being an entrepreneur. Because for me, I started, getting coaching from a woman that did what I wanted to do. So for me, I was able to sort of, follow in her footsteps in a sense, but make them my own
Yeah.
footsteps. And she gave me tools and strategies and things that I would have had to spend hours Googling if I would even find those strategies online, right? So
Right.
I agree. It's so important to have that mentorship.
Yeah, and learning from someone, it does my heart good to hear you say it's worth it to hire a coach because Having someone who's been where you've been is important, and they can teach you what they learned to get where they are. And you're right, you don't have to follow in their footsteps, but they can guide you to find your own.
Absolutely. And I would also add to that that the benefit that you get from hiring a mentor is your mentors likely had a mentor. So you get to learn from the succession of mentors before them, right? Which is
That's right.
so invaluable. So
That's
I love that. And that was one of the things that she pitched to me as well before I signed on with her. And I thought, oh, I've never heard any coach say that before. So if there's any coaches listening, that's a really great way to explain it to people.
Yeah, I have had mentors my entire career. In fact, my entire life. I had mentors even before I started my career, to kind of guide me in my life, and beyond my parents, who were great, but beyond my parents. So I understand the value of having mentors in your life. And you're right. If your mentor has had mentors, you are now gaining the wisdom of kind of generations, if you will, of mentors. And there's just so much value in that. I love that. That was your last tip for us. Thank you very much. Stephanie, it's been a delight to have you here today. I want to thank you, for sharing your story, your journey, the emotional angst that it was for you. But the best part is how you changed it for yourself, how you took the steps to make it different and make it better for you. And look where you are today.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that as we move forward in our careers and our lives, to really look at that, past and how that has created the version that we are today and all the lessons we've learned. So thank you for allowing me to share that story. It was really nice to be able to share that with everyone.
That's my pleasure. Now, I know that a lot of our listeners and viewers are going to want to know how to get in touch with you. I know that you're an Instagram guru. So,
Yep.
um, is this the best way? I put it at the bottom of the screen. Is this the best way for people to reach out to you?
Absolutely. I invite everyone to send me a little DM, just say, hey, let me know what you thought about the episode. Let me know if you can relate to anything in my story, if you're currently going through it or have gone through it. And like I said, I call myself your content bestie because I only want to be best friends with everybody that I meet. And just, I'm just a super genuine person. So never feel shy to send me a message.
That's wonderful. Okay. On Instagram, your content bestie is how you reach Steffi directly. All right. Well, again, those were great tips, Stephanie. Stephanie, I really want to thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It is my pleasure. All right. So, for those of you who are watching and listening, I really want to thank you for being a part of our community, and for listening to these resources that we create every week. There's something for someone in every single one of them, and that's my mission, is to make sure that happens. As a career and life coach, I just love creating these resources for women around the world. And they're intended to help when life turns your world upside down, that we can somehow, in some small way, help you turn it right side up again. I believe it's our time to thrive. Will you join me on that ride? I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.